Hello lovely painter people and welcome back to the studio here in Northumberland. And today I'm going to be doing another watercolour, but I'm working from the first ever book that I did. And this printing is in the year 2000, but the first printing was about 5 years before that. So it's about 25 years old, this book. And The Art of Watercolour. It's a little floppy back book. And it still sells all over the country. But it was never done worldwide. So lots of you lovely people out there that are in the States, where we send a lot of stuff out to, have probably never even seen this book. I'll show you just how old it is. The photograph of the author in the back, I think, is hilarious. Look at that. That's me. But yes, there's a big difference. But it's still a very relevant little book because it's got so many stages to each painting. Look, loads of them there and a load there, all for one painting. And every painting within the book has got the same amount of stages. And I'll just keep that one because that's one I'm going to work from. So many bits and pieces in there. Bits and pieces, full-blown projects all the way through. Very, very useful little book, especially if you're new to watercolours. That one is actually on the cover. The Daler-Rowney, it's all Daler-Rowney equipment in here, which is Daler-Rowney that I use now. Some of the brushes are slightly different. The same sizes, but in those days I used to use Dalon because they didn't have Aquafine brushes. These days it's all Aquafine. 1.5 inch flat, a 3/4 inch flat, a number 8 round, and a number 4 rigger. And those are all the brushes I use. 4 brushes, that's it. Likewise with the colours, I only ever use 8 colours. And the colours that I'm using, again, are Aquafine paints. Got some here in my pocket. There you go. Aquafine paints. They're about £1 a tube. It's for nothing, but it's really good quality. It's students' quality paint, but it's really deep, luscious colours. They are lovely colours. And if you're just starting out, good place to go. All of this stuff is on my website. The paper I'm using is called the Langton Rough. There it is. It comes in various sizes. There's a smaller one than that as well, half the size. Really good paper. You don't ever need to pre-stretch or mess about with it. Good quality paper. It's only £140 weight. But like I say, I never pre-stretch or mess about. Chop a sheet in half, tape it to the board, because I have really big sheets. Langton Rough, fabulous paper. The other good thing about that is there's no wrong side to paint on. You can paint on either side because it's internally sized. That means both sides are right to paint on. Like I said, the painting I'm going to do with this one, I'll tell you a little story about it. I'm doing a lot of talking before I start painting today for some reason. I'm obviously feeling quite gobby. That one, there. This one. I'm going to change it a little bit. I won't have the telegraph post and I'll make it easier for you. The original of this one is actually a place called Elsdon on top of Alnwick Moor here in Northumberland where I live. And a true story about this, years ago when I was starting out, in England, I don't know if you have it abroad, there's a soap called Emmerdale. It's about farming and all that kind of stuff. And the main storyline for 2 episodes was a guy called Eric Pollard, who was a dodgy antiques dealer, bought a big old master painting by someone called Nathan Summers and sold it on a massive profit, did people out of money. That was the main storyline for 2 episodes. There was no such person as Nathan Summers, it was me, but I had to sign it Nathan Summers. That was the original one. So I'm going to do that painting for you today. And here we go. It's a very simple outline. About there. There. Here's the cottage. This is an old, broken down cottage. I don't want perfect straight lines. There's a chimney. There's the end to the cottage. There's the front bit of the chimney. Like I say, no perfect straight lines in this. It's a sagging roof, look there. Sagging down. Another chimney, slightly smaller, further away. Front of that. There's the other end of the roof. And a sagging roof, look wobbly there. Lots of people say I can't paint me because I can't draw a straight line. There are no straight lines here. Windows. When you're painting windows, don't start messing about with sash windows, net curtains, and window catchers and ledgers. You don't need it all. It's the old-fashioned tick. Come up here. Look, it's a tick. Just move the tick around. Look, here's two ticks standing on their end. Got two chimneys. Another two there. A window. It's a tick standing on its end. Window ledge. Tick laid flat. There's another one there. There's a longer tick standing on its end. Two ticks laid flat, you've got two steps. Easy peasy. Don't start drawing stones, it's an outline. A dry stone wall, you're not building the dry stone wall, you're painting it. So it's just, you don't need to do it stone by stone, it's a wiggly line, look, there, end it. Grasses, sorry, for all you people from Sloane Square, grasses. There's a bit more there. Edge of the path. There's the path itself. There's the other side of it. Another dry stone wall coming across here. I'll have a gap in that. We'll have a gate in that one there. Grass underneath that. Now, in the distance, there are a couple of distant hills there. Lots of people say, what kind of pencil do you use? Normally I use IKEA, but today it's Screwfix. Any old pencil I can get for nothing, basically. There's another hill. Here's a middle distance hill, like so, and there's the path going off into the distance. There, very, very simple little drawing. Now it's time for the paint. And before any colour, loads and loads of water. At this stage, you can't put too much on. You can put too little on, but you can't put too much on. Give yourself the time. And I want a nice, strong overcast sky on this one. No light blue fluffy clouds in this one. Big and strong. And there's a lot of it. And to that end, I'm using my big 1.5 inch flat wash brush. As I said, Aquafine. Everything is Aquafine. Now, the first colour, a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm popping that in the bottom, like so. Wash out, squeeze out, and mop it up. The next colour is burnt sienna. Bit of that, plenty of water. Pop that in there. Oh, nice and bright. And again, wash out, squeeze out, mop up. Now the next colour is ultramarine blue. I say ultramarine blue, it's French ultramarine blue. I just call it ultramarine blue. And a bit of burnt sienna. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Plenty of water. Pop that in the top. Don't be afraid. I mean, I know that's really dark. Don't be afraid of the dark. Because remember, this is always going to dry about 30% lighter than when I put it on, so allow for that. Coming all the way down. Don't stop when one colour reaches the others, look. And coming all the way through. That way you don't have hard edges where the colours meet each other. And again, wash out, squeeze out, and mop up. That's the mantra for today. Wash out, squeeze out, mop up. Just go through that one more time. Now again, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. This time even stronger and darker and less water into it. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Don't want too much water in this. I want a couple of bits coming out here. Now, if this were a light blue, fluffy clouded sky, I wouldn't want this colour starting to run down. But for an overcast sky, it's nice to have your clouds coming down to the hills, running down towards the hills. Now washing it, squeeze out. I've got my dark clouds in there. Now for light clouds, don't start messing about with your kitchen rolls. It's like setting up the Blue Peter studio when you're doing clouds. I've seen all kinds of things used for them. Kitchen rolls, tea towels, sponges, pots of salt, hair dryers, everything. All you need is your brush. Wash out, squeeze down, let some paint out. And again, wash out. I'm washing out between clouds. That way I'm taking paint out rather than just moving it about. And again, a bit more here. Join them up there. As I'm taking out there, I'm just going to drop a bit back in there. Wash out, squeeze out. Take out a bit of cloud on top of those. How simple is that? But it's all done while it's still good and wet. Now, I'll just leave that 5 minutes to dry. Now my sky isn't quite dry yet, you can still see a bit of glistening going on here, but you can see already how much lighter it's drying than when I put it on. So like I say, it's still a bit wet, but I'm going to start and paint down here in the foreground where I'm not in danger of touching anything in the sky. And so I've changed my 3/4 inch flat wash brush this time, again Aquafine. Incidentally, these I also use for my acrylic paintings, the same set, and they're a real mess, but they'll stand a lot of abuse. These are about 2 years old, well over 2 years old, this same set, and they're used for both mediums. Now I'm going to start off with a little bit of yellow ochre, plenty of water into this, and in the path, I want to get some light onto this. So I'm going to stroke over lightly with yellow ochre, and because the surface of the paper is a little bit rough, I've got little bits of white sparkly paper shine through, capture light on the path. Now afterwards, towards the end, I'll go over that with some darker colour as well. So I'll have yellow ochre sparkling through here and there, and a little bit of white paper sparkling through here and there. Whilst I'm in with the yellow ochre, this is a very quick painting, you don't need to mess about with this one. I'll have a bit of yellow ochre over here as well. These will be foreground grasses eventually, like that. But at the moment, I'm just whacking colour on. I'll make them, whack, that's a technical term. I'll make them into grasses afterwards. Bit there. Bit there. Now again, burnt sienna, the colours of the sky really, with a few extras. Bit of burnt sienna, bish bash bosh, like that, not like that, just like that. And a bit of that there. Just burnt sienna. I'm humming, that's dangerous. Now, Hooker's Green and burnt sienna. I've got to use this Hooker's Green. But never use Hooker's Green by itself. It's totally unnatural by itself. As a mixer, however, it's a fabulous colour. Best one in your box. You can make every green you need from Hooker's Green, and just about every other colour you've got, one, sometimes two at a time. That one is Hooker's Green and burnt sienna. Now, you get that in there. So as I said, never use it by itself. Even though I'm going in with green now, I'm still not making grass out of it. Whilst I'm in with that green, I'm just going to fill the middle distance here and there. Pop that on there. Carefully around my dry stone wall. Bit of that. Now, I want to give the impression that this part goes away, disappears, and then re-emerges. So, I need to get a bit more depth down the bottom of that. And all I'm going to do is going to there with a bit of blue. Ultramarine blue. Don't change your blues, not for anything natural. Bit of blue there, look. Bit there, it's very dark there. Now, wash out, squeeze out, and with a clean damp brush, just stipple on, look, with the sharp of the brush. Give that hill a bit of texture, a bit of bumpiness. Stippling. Dib dab dob. Dib dab dob. And I'll leave that for a second. In the meantime, the sky is dry enough at the base now to do my distant hills. So again, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. This hill is a long way off. Don't want any detail in it, and I don't want it too strong in colour either. Bring that forward like so. I don't want detail in it, but likewise, I don't want it lying flat either. So, just with my brush again, squeeze it out. Take a little bit of paint out. Give it a little bit of shape. Like so. Now again, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. This time a touch stronger for the other distant hill. Because I'm using a sharp edge brush, like a flat brush, it's easy enough to go around that cottage. Very simple. Now over here, I'm going to leave the top part of that hill unpainted. There is a reason for that. I'll think of it in a minute. Well, hello. All the way across there. Now the reason why I've left that unpainted is because now I'm going to drop in there with a little bit of yellow ochre. And that sticks out like a sore thumb all the way across. Sticks out like a sore thumb until, that is, like I took light out of that one. If I do the same here, but this time take the blue into the yellow into the blue, soften them together, and without fiddling about too much. I've got light on my hills. Down in between the gate. There. And now leave that to dry now. Now, quite often when you're painting a path in a landscape painting, it looks like the path is kind of like sitting on top of the grass. So, you know, it's like plonked on top of there rather than sitting down in the landscape. So while all this lot is still slightly damp, I'm going again with ultramarine blue and a tiny touch of burnt sienna and lots of water, and gently stroke over, deliberately dragging in a little hint of green from either side there. So now I've got all the colours of the landscape in there. Bit of green, bit of white, bit of yellow ochre, some blue, it's all in there. When I get the final grasses in, it will then sit down into the landscape. So I've got all the big bits done, now to the cottage. And I'm changing to my number 8 round brush for this. A very useful little brush. And I've got raw umber. Raw umber's the only brown I use. So I've got a nice standalone brown with raw umber. If I put a touch of blue into there, I've got sepia. Put a little bit of burnt sienna into my sepia mix, I've got Van Dyke brown. Take my raw umber and burnt sienna together, I've got burnt umber. So I've got 4 different browns from one tube. Really easy. And fairly dark to start with. And then the dark side here, the dark side. Just filling in. Don't start messing about painting stones. You're not building this, you're painting it. Don't go stone by stone. I shall give the impression of stonework when all this is dried. Filling in there and down here. all with a number 8 round brush. This is a very useful little brush, and I think that's about £2.50 on my website. I don't use expensive kit. Even though I'm a supplied artist and I get everything for nothing, that doesn't mean I pick the most expensive, because the most expensive isn't necessarily the most versatile. Now, a lot more water into that same brush full of paint. Fill that side in there. And a little bit in the front of the chimneys there. I've got a light side to those as well. And actually, I want to take a little bit more out of that. So a bit of paint out. Now, if I'm up on the moors, up here, and I've got a dry stone wall next to a stone cottage, it's going to be the same colour. It's going to be the same stone. So keep the colour system the same. A little bit of blue into my raw umber. Excuse me. And just fill in. Simple strokes. I'll give the impression of stonework on this later as well. But you notice what I'm doing? Just leaving a tiny touch of white paper showing through on the top, here and there. Just get a little bit of light on that. And the same here. Bit of white on the top. Fairly haphazardly. And over to this side here. I'm going to have sheep posts on top of this in a minute. Up on the moors, there's like sticks on top of dry stone walls with wire mesh in between them to stop the sheep jumping the walls. I'm not bothered about the wire mesh, but the posts, however, are a brilliant aid to recession. Take you further into the picture. Filling in that, and then that wall disappears over the edge of the path there. I'm moving around this painting while one bit's drying a little bit, paint somewhere else. Back to the roof here. Again, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Obviously it has to be a lot darker than the hills behind it, otherwise I would lose the roof against the hills. Bit there. I'm bringing out here. Again, that's a wobbly base to that. A bit like me, it's getting wobbly in its old age. Now, back to this side. Again, that raw umber mix and blue, but this time I touch a burnt sienna into it as well. A bit more blue. And all I'm doing now is give the effect of stonework. So with the sharp edge excuse me, of that flat brush, I'm just dabbing on them. Leaving some of the undercolour showing here and there. Now wash it out, squeeze out, clean damp brush. Same process, tapping on, and just softening it here and there. That bit there, that was digital art. And now I'll leave that there. Now, still with the cottage, I can change it to my rigger brush for one. Number 4 rigger. Lovely little brush, that one. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna as a black. Don't use manufactured black, always make your black. Manufactured black is dead and flat and boring. And I'm just going to fill in the few bits of detail that I have got on there. There's one chimney. There's another one. Another two there. The windows. Window ledge. The door. 2 steps underneath it. There. Now, That dry stone wall has dried a little bit, so still with the black look. I'm just squiggling the brush around a little bit. This dry stone wall is a way off, therefore you don't need to see much detail in it. Just squiggly bits. Look. When I finish this painting, I'll show you how to do a bit of a dry stone wall closer up. Squiggling the brush around again. Edge it there. And again here, just over there. Edge it there. Bit of dark there. And again, edge it. Squiggle, squiggle. All I'm doing is just roughing it up a bit, so it's not flat. And here we are with the sheep posts, like I said earlier. Look. Fabulous age of recession. These are up and down all over the place, but the general trend is getting shorter as they go further away. And again here. Quiet then, probably, didn't it? Some change. For me to shut up. They disappear, getting shorter there, look. Now, on top of that wall, we want some coping stones. So still with the black, but just diagonal stones, look, strokes, look, like so. Corner of that big brush. There you can see those more clearly. Now a gate there. When it comes to painting a gate, this is when you normally go to your smallest brush and paint gate catchers, hinges, chains, little knots in the wood. All you need is your big brush, look. It's a stick, another stick, one there. Gate. And finally, still with the black, where the roof meets the building, I want a good hard dark shadow line then, all the way across there. Now, with a clean down brush, soften that down a little bit. That's my number 8 round brush. That really makes that roof sit down on the building now. Now, that path in the distance there, I can't leave it white because it sticks out like a sore thumb. But also if you paint it a distinct colour, you're probably going to lose it at that kind of distance. So this is a new colour. It's called Muck Off Smock. Just with a clean, just with a dirty, damp brush. I'm just stroking it across it. Now it's not bright white, it doesn't stick out too much. Now it's time for the final grasses and to finish this painting off. I need my green good and strong and dark. There's going to be 2 different mixes going into this. There's the green and then there's a blue mix as well. Plenty of burnt sienna into my green. There. Now, obviously before now, I've just spent time bashing colour on. Now I need to make that lot into proper, dark, strong moorland grasses. So obviously I need to paint it more carefully. You didn't believe me, did you? But that, now with the side of the brush, tap it all up. A little bit of light coming from that gate, look, through that gate first. Now start, lift that up. But now you see I've got a little bit of burnt sienna showing through there. Now it's these flicks here that really make that cottage sit down into the landscape there. See what I mean? Flick up there. Now back into Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Sienna. Heavier on the blue, it's not black. Nice dark rich blue. I don't need to go all the way back with that. Again, flick up. And nice and dark down here, around the corner. And again, those flicks that really make that cottage sit down. Now, whilst I'm in with that blue, I'm just going to go flat into the paint with my 3/4 inch brush. And just with flat strokes, have a little bit more texture into your stuff there. And again, wash out, squeeze down. Do the same with a clean down. Now, finish off the grass. I was once doing a show and this guy piped up and said, which way are you flicking? Are you flicking upwards or are you flicking downwards? I'm just playing the piano still. Now, back to my rigger brush to finish that one off. And still with a little bit of black. We'll have a buzzard up in the sky there. Like so. Which is just a tick with a stick. There, a buzzard. Now, just before I take the tape off, I want to show you one quick thing here. So I've got another little piece of paper here. Just to show you, I talked about dry stone walls earlier. That one is a long way off, quite a bit way off. You don't need that much detail into it. If you've got a dry stone wall closer up, more detailed in your landscape, people do tend to build it and do it stone by stone. It's a very simple process, but again, you need to be quick. I'll just do a little bit of a section of dry stone wall here. This is a colour called sand, Charles Evans sand. A very, very useful colour. If you haven't got it, get yourself some. It's good as a layering colour. You put that down, mix other colours on top, leave this shining through. It's also good as a lightener. Put that into any colour you've got and it'll lighten it without muddying it as white does. Flesh tone, you know, flesh tone is really difficult to mix. Sand and light red, you've got a lovely flesh tone. Stonework, it's good for stonework. I'm going to use it here for stonework. It's such a useful colour. So there's a little bit of sand there. Just splash that on. It's just a section of a dry stone. It's also good for painting beaches. Now I've got a little bit of blue and brown on. And now here's an old credit card. And all I'm doing is just scraping. Coping stones on the top. There you go, dry stone wall. There you go, a little bit of dry stone wall. You can imagine if you carry that on into your painting, your detail gets slightly less as you go further away. All I'll do now is take the tape off this one and you can see a finished picture. And there you go, finished painting of Elsdon Moor, or an old sheep shearer's cottage up on Elston Moor, commonly known as the Nathan Summers Emmerdale picture. Notice the paper. You've seen how much water I've put on this paper throughout the painting. The sky was absolutely flooded, but when it's dry, look, totally flat. And this is not pre-stretched. The Langton Rough paper, fabulous paper. Another little book, which I didn't tell you about, is this one, especially if you're a beginner. But actually you don't even need to be a beginner because this has got all the mixes in. It's Charles Evans' pocketbook for watercolour artists. There's so many tips and techniques and bits and pieces in here. There's lots of projects as well, stage by stage bits. But it's a very handy, useful little book for you to keep in your paint bag. So many people do. It's a bit of the go-to book for watercolour artists, really. And all the mixes that I talk about, look, are all in there. Lots of different mixes. Charles Evans pocketbook, really useful book. Have a look on my website, everything's on there. And the next one I'm going to do is going to be an acrylic one. See you soon, bye.